Welcome Close Up. Thanks for joining us. I'm Josh McKelvin. Well, it went right down to the wire, but when the dust settled the day after, it was Governor Maggie Hassan coming out on top with about 1,000 votes more than incumbent Senator Kelly Ayotte. Now that the election is over, it's time to talk priorities with the woman who will head to Washington in January, if not sooner. Governor Hassan, good to see you. Is it Governor Hassan? Is it Senator-elect? That's the most important thing I have to figure out.
Governor is just fine.
Oh, so we'll keep it there. So, big picture. What was election night watching your race, and then, of course, what we saw at the top of the ticket for you?
Well, I've just been so grateful to the people of New Hampshire for everything they've shared with me, both as governor and then as a candidate for the United States Senate. And so election night really is always a culmination of that. And there's always, a fair amount of uncertainty, but we all knew that we just wanted to make sure that we were working as hard as we could right up to the 11th hour to make sure that every vote was cast and every vote was counted. I think what we saw unfold Tuesday night was some of the divisions that this campaign season have exposed. One of the things I know is that I've also had the privilege of talking to the people of New Hampshire constantly as governor and campaigning, and we also have a lot in common. So now it's time we come together and figure out how to move forward as a state and country.
Yeah, how is your thought process changing over the last couple of days? Because like most of the country, you probably thought that if you won, you'd be heading down to Washington and working with the Clinton administration. That's obviously not the case now.
Well, that's right. But, what we've also seen is both an incredibly gracious and thoughtful concession speech from Secretary Clinton that made it clear that our greatest strength is our confidence in our country and each other and our peaceful transitions. And so that's what we're seeing unfold now. Again, if we stay focused on what binds us as Americans, I think we're going to do just fine. We do have some real differences, and we're going to have to figure out how to address those. But what I'm looking forward to in Washington is representing the people of New Hampshire to reflect the priorities that they've set out for me as governor and now as senator-elect and then senator. We know that people all want to come together and build a brighter future and an economy that includes everyone. We know that it's possible to keep our economy moving forward, to protect our environment and keep our country safe. So those are the goals that we should be focusing on. My first order of business is going to be to try to get that emergency funding to help us combat our heroin and opioid crisis here at home. That's our most pressing challenge in New Hampshire. But more than anything, I think we all know it's time now to come together and move forward.
What kind of advice, if you've had any advice from Senator Jeanne Shaheen, obviously a lot of similarities, having been governor, now you're going to the U.S. Senate, similarities with your career trajectory, but has she reached out to you and say, all right, here's kind of what you should expect coming down to Washington, how it's a much different job than the one that you've been doing for the last 4 years?
Well, whatever the job has been, whether I was in the state Senate or now as governor or going down to the United States Senate, my focus is always on how can we bring people together? How can we hear the best ideas that people have from both sides? A number of the things that we've accomplished in New Hampshire over the last 4 years have been because we've included ideas from both perspectives, Republican and Democrat. And that I know is what Senator Shaheen works to do, and that's what I'm focused on doing. And it's great to have Jeanne Shaheen as a friend and a mentor, and she's been a terrific friend in that role for a long time, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with her.
You are heading to Washington at an extraordinary time in this country's history. Obviously, you're a strong supporter of Hillary Clinton, and a lot of things were said about Donald Trump, by supporters of Hillary Clinton. Are you buoyed, though, at all about what you've seen so far? We're taping this on Thursday, so it's only been a couple of days, but do you like what you're hearing from Donald Trump so far?
Well, I think it's really important that he's focused on how to move through his transition into the role of the presidency with the seriousness that the role requires. And, the President of the United States not only obviously is chief executive of our country, but he represents to the rest of the world our ideals and our values. And those are values and ideals that stand for the very basic proposition that every single person counts. That's what our founders really set out in our Declaration of Independence and then in our Constitution. And so it's really important that we all move forward with that sense of respect to our American values, our history as a country, and finding a way to make sure that we're honoring those in this modern and changing world.
Yeah, Secretary Clinton said during her concession speech that the Trump administration needs to be approached with an open mind and that he deserves a chance to lead. Yeah. There's still some healing that needs to be done. I mean, this is a man that said a lot of things that were offensive to a lot of different people, women, and minorities. Do you think there's going to be a period of adjustment for a lot of folks?
I think we are at our strongest when people who have been hurt or shocked by things that have been said speak up about that in as constructive and thoughtful way as they can. And I think just as we should approach the President-elect's administration with an open mind, as Secretary Clinton urged us to do, I think, and I'm hoping that he will reciprocate as well and listen to the people who have been so concerned, and let's find a way forward and heal. I know that we're all capable of that as Americans. There's so much that binds us in common. You know, what I always say is if elected officials would follow the example of the people of New Hampshire who solve problems in their daily lives, whether it's family, community, business, they do it even when they have differences of opinion, political or otherwise. Sure. And we are capable of doing that as a country too, and in fact we have a history of doing it. Campaigns tend to expose divisions, and certainly this one exposed considerable ones. But we also know that in the period after campaigns, we have a history of coming together, finding common ground, and moving forward. We are perched, or maybe the better word is we're poised to lead in the 21st century economy because we believe in the value of every person, because we believe you can unleash talent and energy and grow and thrive because of that. And that's what we should be focused on. How do we make sure that every Granite Stater and every American has the opportunity to learn, to work hard, to get ahead and stay ahead? That's what I'll be focused on in the United States Senate. And when I agree and can work with President Trump, I certainly will do that. When I think it is necessary to stand up to President Trump, I certainly will do that.
You talked about the priority of getting funding to address the opioid crisis. Yeah, you must feel some sense of optimism that at least when he has been in New Hampshire, and he's been here a lot, yeah, he does talk about the drug problem here and promises to address it.
Yeah, and I am very buoyed by that because I do know he has paid attention to it here. I know it is the frontline priority for the people of this state, as it should be. It is affecting people from all walks of life, and we need to come together and find a way. And this is one of the areas where resources really do matter. And so I'm hopeful that we will stay focused on both resources for law enforcement and resources for prevention, treatment, and recovery so that we can beat this epidemic and move forward.
Let's talk about your race. Obviously, razor thin. You won by more than 1,000 votes, and it was rough and tumble. I mean, they say politics ain't beanbag, but it was a rough race, especially with the third-party attacks that were going on. You got a call from Senator Kelly Ayotte. What was that like?
She was incredibly gracious and congratulated me on the race and wished me well. I congratulated her on the race because she ran a really excellent race too, and I wished her well and her family well and thanked her for her service. And I'm very appreciative for the call and very appreciative that at the end of the day we know when campaigns are done, they're done.
Politics isn't personal. Or at least it shouldn't be.
No, it shouldn't be. And what I think is really important is for people to understand that we're trying to focus on our ideas, on issues that matter, and on votes that matter. And that's what I tried to do in this campaign, and what I want to make sure that the people of New Hampshire understand is my commitment to them as Senator-elect and soon-to-be Senator is just as it's been as governor, which is to work every day to reflect the priorities that they express to me, to understand their frustrations and try to make things better and address those frustrations, and make sure that we really honor each other's ideas and approaches And if we do that, we've been able to move forward. That's what I've worked on as governor. That's what I want to work on in the United States Senate, working with people from both parties and all perspectives to move our country forward.
We only have a couple minutes to go. We talked so much about the transition of power taking place down in Washington, D.C., but your successor, Chris Sununu, Republican, is going to be the next governor of New Hampshire. We know that. Has there been some dialogue about transitioning from your administration to his?
Yeah, well, my administration started planning for a transition, obviously not knowing who the next governor would be some months ago. And so I reached out to Governor-elect Sununu yesterday morning. We've had a couple of good conversations, and we'll continue to work with him and his team very closely moving forward, just to make sure that it's smooth.
Okay, and over the course of the last year, I can't remember, you declared, I think it was October of...
That was about it, early
15.
October of 15, yeah.
Are you going to have a time to just kind of unwind a little bit, kind of reflect on all it's been and get refreshed and charge back up?
I try to build in a little time every day just to take a deep breath, and I'm certainly looking forward in the next few days in particular having a little bit more time with my family. They've been just amazing during this whole experience, starting with when I first started running for the state Senate. They have loved serving as the first family of New Hampshire. They are excited about what the next 6 years bring, and I am very grateful to them too.
And maybe get in some workouts too. A lot of people, when you did one of the profile stories, you let us come to the gym with you. Maybe you can work out with Paul Ryan when you get down there.
You know, I'm always happy to work out. It can be a fun and sometimes pretty competitive experience.
Yeah, it's a stress reliever too. Well, best of luck to you moving forward. Congratulations for everything.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks, Josh.
You got it.